Next up, I'm very pleased to welcome the head of the National Transportation Safety Board to the stage. The Honorable Jennifer Homendy was nominated by the President and unanimously confirmed by the Senate. Unanimous confirmation these days is quite a feat, so a hearty congratulations on that. She's a champion of safety across all modes of transportation and has been on the scene of several air accidents. She's a strong believer in holding airlines to the highest safety standards. I participated alongside Chair Homendy at the FAA's safety stand down in March, where she reminded us that the absence of accidents does not indicate the presence of safety. She's been relentless in helping transportation stay ahead of emerging risk, and we are honored to have her join us today. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Jennifer Homendy.
Well, thank you all so much, and thank you to Faye for that kind introduction, and great to see lots of folks here today. And I just want to also thank all the RAA members. NTSB could not do what we do without you. We are partners in safety, so I do appreciate our work together to implement our safety recommendations and to talk when they aren't implemented. But I just really appreciate the collaboration. It means a great deal. So the critical efforts of everyone in this room have contributed to the reputation of the United States being the gold standard for aviation safety. We have a lot to be proud of. The U.S. is currently enjoying a record level of aviation safety. Certainly we have the safest airspace in the world. And a record like ours is the result of years, decades of intentional effort. But we can't take it for granted. I often hear that there have been no Part 121 passenger fatalities in 12 of the last 15 years. That's true, but there's always more that we can do to improve safety. And we can't forget that those who did die or were seriously injured, that we need to look closer on where we can make those safety improvements. The NTSB, and I often remind people, our goal is to not have an NTSB. The NTSB fights for zero across all modes of transportation. It's not an easy task, especially these days. I think it's a really challenging time for aviation. The industry, having ramped back up after a really stressful time during the height of the pandemic, a lot of layoffs and retirements, a new workforce coming in which need to be well trained. Those who were out during the pandemic need to be retrained. I will say I had an excellent conversation with a pilot for Envoy who is transitioning to American. We have a little joke in the office that when I get on a plane, I never tell anybody who I'm with, except in this one case. I was with him at a Starbucks, and it was delayed, but he sat next to me, and I think the big joke is that when I get on the plane, people just start talking to me. So we did spend the next 3 hours all the way from Dallas, talking about aviation safety, Envoy, American, and the NTSB. So he did speak very highly of training. We also have the most complex airspace in the world, and it's going to become even more complex. We've got drones, urban air mobility or advanced air mobility, even more commercial space launches and reentries, and new fuels, hydrogen. We're looking at more and more shipments of lithium-ion batteries on cargo planes. How we maintain our gold standard of safety amid all of these challenges to forge an even safer future, that's the task before us. I know each of you share that goal. Not a single one of us ever wants to see an accident occur, which is why, even though aviation is still incredibly safe, the status quo is not sustainable. I'm referring to the recent spate of close calls, runway incursions, the most serious of which, and we took a look at the data, the most serious of which seem to be on the rise. Overall, the numbers seem to be getting lower, but the serious ones seem to be on the rise. NTSB is investigating 6 of them right now. January 13th, American Airlines crossed a 777 crossed an active runway at JFK without clearance, causing a Delta 737 to abort its takeoff. The 2 aircraft came within 1,400 feet of each other, putting 308 lives at risk. January 23rd, a United Airlines flight crossed the same runway at Inouye International Airport in Hawaii, where a Kamaka Air flight was landing. The aircraft came within about 1,200 feet of each other, putting 303 lives at risk. February 4th, a Southwest passenger jet and a FedEx cargo plane were less than 200 feet from colliding at Austin's International Airport in Texas, putting 131 people in danger. I did have the chance to fly back from FedEx a few weeks ago with one of the crew members from that FedEx flight. But when I was there, they went through the scenario in the simulator that occurred. February 16th, Sarasota, Florida, an Air Canada Rouge A321 was cleared for takeoff from the same runway where an American Airlines B737 was cleared to land. 2 planes came within about 3,000 feet of each other, putting at risk 372 lives. February 22nd, in Burbank, California, a Mesa Airlines jet initiated a go-around while a SkyWest jet was still departing the runway. The 2 planes came within 300 feet of each other, putting at risk 118 lives. Finally, on August 11th, a Cessna business jet and a Southwest Airlines flight came close to colliding at San Diego International Airport. The planes were about 100 feet from each other. There were at least 2 people on the Cessna, and on the Southwest plane, there were 5 crew and 110 passengers. In addition to these open investigations, we just published our findings following 2 wrong surface landings, one in Tulsa and one in Pittsburgh. We also closed our investigation into the February 27th incident at Boston Logan International Airport, where a JetBlue flight initiated a go-around after a HopaJet flight took off without clearance on an intersecting runway. The planes came within 400 feet of each other. Any one of these events, any one could have been catastrophic. At this point, someone usually says to me, but the system worked. It worked. Or someone says, and I agree, because I always remind everybody when I talk on the news that the most dangerous part of your travel when you're flying by air is to and from the airport. It's not actually on the plane. It's when you're on the roads. But we still can't forget that any one of these could have been a tragedy. These are warning signs. We can't ignore them. We can't afford to rest on our laurels and say, but we're safe. And we can't just say, let's be more vigilant. We have to take action. As I'm sure you can imagine, the NTSB has a lot of ideas on how we believe we can strengthen safety together. It starts with training, a topic that has been raised again and again, including at our most recent runway incursion roundtable. Boyu represented RAA at that one. Thank you so much for your contributions, excellent. When it comes to pilot training, the lessons from the 2009 Colgan Air tragedy are still relevant. That accident, as many of you recall, claimed 50 lives. Our investigation determined that the accident was caused by the inappropriate responses and actions by the flight crew, actions that were inconsistent with their training, including proper stall recovery, sterile cockpit procedures, flight crew monitoring, and pilot professionalism and fatigue. But I'm not only talking about pilot training. At this critical moment in aviation, we need to think beyond the cockpit. One look at the AFL-CIO's Death on the Job report tells us that transportation is a dangerous line of work. And then there's this headline from last month in the Wall Street Journal: more workers are getting hurt on the tarmac. At our event on runway incursions, we heard the same thing from mechanics, air traffic controllers, ramp agents, and others, all of whom cited the need not just for more training time, but for more relevant training opportunities. I recently spoke with the president of PASS. He told me that his members, especially those who are sent from airport to airport, have quote, white knuckles on the steering wheel when they're driving vehicles on airport surfaces. That's what he talked about at our runway incursion roundtable. He said they pray they're on an access road and not a runway. They're desperate for more training so they can safely do their jobs. One major factor that's keeping frontline aviation workers from getting the training they need: staffing. One example is air traffic controllers, and we all know that, many of whom have been forced to work for years with mandatory overtime. Only 3 of the nation's 313 air traffic facilities have enough controllers to meet the targets set by the FAA and NATCA. When staffing is so tight that workers are told that they can't take time for training, that affects safety. On that note, I do have to say we're obviously standing on the verge of a likely government shutdown. That also affects safety. Certainly the NTSB is going to do what it can do during a shutdown. We are limited, but if you just think about training for air traffic controllers, all that training in Oklahoma City at their academy stops. And then it takes months to get everything to ramp back up. That's a significant impact on safety. Now, I do want to spend a moment and talk about turbulence. One thing I'm very focused on is flight attendant safety, especially in turbulence. We're investigating the December 2022 severe turbulence event, including a Hawaiian Airlines Flight 35 that was about 40 minutes from landing at Honolulu International Airport. According to our preliminary report, a cloud shot up vertically in front of the airplane in a matter of seconds. There was not enough time for the pilot to deviate. Of the 291 passengers and crew, 25 people were injured, 6 seriously. 2 of those injured were flight attendants. I am very concerned about the danger of turbulence for flight attendants because flight attendants are nearly 24 times higher than that of passengers in risk for serious injury. 24 times higher. In fact, turbulence accounts for more than 3/4 of all flight attendant injuries. We know the solution is to have flight attendants seated with their seat belts during the critical phases of flight. And yet carriers are still trying to anticipate turbulence or react quickly enough in the event of an unanticipated turbulence to prevent injury. We hit turbulence at a time when I was on a flight not too long ago where the flight attendants should have been seated, but they were at the time pouring out hot coffee. It's not important. They should be seated with their seatbelts on. As I said, the time to act is now, whether it's on runway incursions, whether it's on training, including training for air traffic controllers, or the safety of flight attendants. Everyone in this room needs to ask ourselves the hard questions. Are we doing enough? Are we doing enough to improve safety? And that goes for me too. We ask all the time. Are we doing what's needed to prevent the next possible disaster that I hope never happens? I hope it doesn't, but we have to be prepared. Over the past year, we've been having a series of safety summits in the different modes of transportation. Some of you may have been part of the one that was scheduled for June. I had completely lost my voice after a 2-day hearing in East Palestine, Ohio. So I was also trying to deal with the Titan submersible that the Coast Guard and our folks were trying to pull up. And as much as I could, try to talk very loudly in a whisper to the Coast Guard Deputy Commandant. So it was a little rough. So I had to cancel the safety summit. The purpose of that safety summit is to bring together everyone, not so that we can talk to you about recommendations or how to improve safety. What I want to do is figure out how the NTSB is doing, how we can improve, how can we deliver to the public better, how can we be more accountable. Speaking of which, I should probably tell you, you'll soon get word that the most wanted list, the board voted unanimously to sunset the most wanted list on December 31st. That does not mean we won't advocate for safety. Our recommendations don't change. We still have recommendations. We will still have advocacy work. We'll still work towards implementing recommendations. But the list itself won't exist. We have a website which will go through some of our safety issues that are most important in each of our modes of transportation. That'll be a resource for everyone, so I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. But again, on the Safety Summit, you'll be getting a invitation to participate in the rescheduled one, which should be very soon. Would have been even sooner, but I'm not sure with the shutdown. So thank you very much. I do want to thank you for having me. I have worked with many of you in the past to improve safety. It is a very collaborative relationship for the NTSB. You mean a great deal to us. Only together can we improve safety and make improvements and change. So thank you for having me.